All very welcome. You're all very welcome. As you will have heard there, this is a conference that's going to last about 1.5 hours. We are recording it. We had a great day yesterday, and that recording will also be available for you to look at eventually on the Digi2market website. So just a brief note on the project. We are funded under the EU Interreg Northern Periphery and Arctic Programme. And the main purpose of our project is to support small businesses in the project territory, which is the west of Ireland, Northern Ireland, and the border counties of Cavan and Monaghan, and also Iceland and Finland. So as I say, we had a great day yesterday. We had speakers from Northern Ireland and Iceland. They were covering training for small businesses, merging farming and tourism in Iceland, and discussing development opportunities for various sectors in relation to immersive technology. So today promises to be equally engaging, as we have 3 speakers this morning from Northern Ireland and Iceland, and we will be looking at the costs and challenges for small businesses who are using immersive technology, as well as how interactive technology can transport you into the past. And I think if we'd known that we were doing time travel in this project, we probably would have put it down on our outcomes and deliverables. Maybe it's not too late to be doing that. Halfway through this morning's sessions at around about 11 o'clock, I'll be inviting my colleague Liam Horan from the Western Development Commission in Ireland to come into the conference, and we will be undertaking a selection process for SMEs who can avail of mentoring support through the project. So each of the speakers will present for around about 15 to 20 minutes. And what we'll do is there'll be opportunities for Q&A at the end of the session. But in the meantime, please do feel free to use the chat function, the Q&A function, and we will endeavour to do our best to collate all those at the end of the 3 sessions. So I think without any further ado, I'm going to invite our first speaker of the day, and it's Dr. Helen Jackson from Ulster University. And Helen is going to be, she's a senior lecturer in interactive media at Ulster University, and Helen is going to provide some insight into the costs associated with immersive technology development. So Helen, you're very welcome, and hand over to you now.
Thank you very much, Andy. Hello, everybody. I'm going to talk you through some of the sort of costs associated with designing and delivering these types of solutions in business. I think it was very interesting yesterday that a lot of the conversation that we sort of resolved at the end of our session yesterday looked at sort of was a discussion around businesses' expectations when it came to developing these types of toolkits for their business. So it's something I'd sort of like to explore a little bit further. What became apparent was actually that a lot of the good work that has been done actually in this arena has been largely funded by public bodies, the likes of the MPNA funding stream. A lot of it has been done through higher education institutions. So it was really just a way of looking to see if whether we can sort of unpack that a little bit better, really to give clients, SMEs who are looking at developing this type of content, what really are the things that they should think about in terms of, you know, asset development and a sort of a broad brush understanding in terms of how much these things cost. You'll see that a lot of the way through my presentation, I talk about costs from. It is very, very difficult to give exact figures on these types of things. Different businesses obviously have their own models of cost per hour in terms of user interface design, back-end technology design, those types of things. But I've sort of gathered together, I've done a little bit of research over the past couple of years, really to draw together to see if I can present a more comprehensive set of figures that hopefully businesses can use as a guide. So we're going to talk about VR and AR separately because the costs associated with each of them are slightly different. To understand and really to sort of help businesses to think about whenever they're budgeting for any type of immersive technology strategy, what are the things that they should think about? The important thing to understand is that you should be provided with a lot of documentation when it comes up to some sort of strategy that's been put in place. That should be very much part and parcel of what any immersive technology company should be offering you. So that design process starts with detailed project documentation. This is essentially your guarantee that the VR application will actually meet your exact standards, and it should include all of the important features concerning the project. What are your goals as the business? What is the main aim of that VR development? What are the key features that you want from this? Now, for a lot of businesses who may be unfamiliar with working in this arena, that's obviously going to be something that you'll have to develop alongside in sort of tandem with any developer that you are working for. But it is and because there is specifically specific languages that do actually come along with that, and that might be something that you are at this moment really unfamiliar with. But essentially, you should think, with the help of them, they should help you to come up with, what is your user story? All of these things fundamentally are designed for users. They're not designed for business, they're designed for someone to use them. So what is the specific problems that you think your user has, and how does that VR application solve that problem for you? And essentially, largely the success of any of this type of experience will be dependent on knowing your user. Try and describe as much as possible. Where does the user start in that VR experience? What action do you want them to take? How much time do you want them to spend with the application? And what is it about the VR experience that is actually going to bring about change? And remembering all the time, project documentation is costed. There is a cost to that. You're not just procuring a technology solution. There's sort of incremental parts of the journey that businesses will go on with any technology development agency, and sort of expect that this isn't something that can be resolved very quickly. It could take 3 days, it might take 10 days, but in terms of cost, you're looking at from £5,000 maybe, or sorry, £500 if it's just a quick conversation, but that could be anywhere up to £2,500, £3,000, depending on the detail that you are looking for in your solution. So that's for project documentation. Then you've also got to remember that, yes, you are still paying for the actual development of something. So again, in terms of any sort of, say for example, it's a sort of simple VR or app-based experience, say for example a simple VR game where the protagonist is maybe falling, running towards a finish line, has to avoid some stones, meteors, ducking down, that sort of thing. In terms of development time, you're talking about 1 month, and in terms of the most simple game, a sort of experience of flying, running a race, that type of thing, that has in terms of, it might be measured in sort of 90 seconds to 2 minutes experience. Again, you're sort of thinking of things right between £4,000 and £6,000. And remembering here, sorry, I'm sort of very conscious that we've got international people signing into the conference. So in terms of cost, everything I'm talking about here is in sterling. If you're looking for something that's slightly more complex, such as a virtual reality shop where you go in and habit and pick things off shelves in a virtual world, and then actually are able to follow through in terms of purchasing, or maybe you could even try something on if it's clothing related, that could take around 2 to 3 months for coding and back-end development. And again, in terms of, if you want ballpark figures there, you're talking anything between £12,000 and £20,000. In terms of AR, And I thought it was interesting yesterday listening to Tom Houston speaking from Centerreal. This is where Tom actually thinks a lot of the innovation is going to come from over the next 5 to 10 years. In terms of AR, again, it's the same type of thing. The process starts with detailed project documentation. Again, it's the same guarantee that the AR application will meet the needs of the customers. It will include all the information about the project, details about the project vision, its features, all the technical details, all the dependencies and various media assets that need to be designed in relation to, fully delivering on the project. Possibly within that type of project documentation, you will get visual mappings, sort of paper type prototypes, as we would call them, wireframe creation, design maybe of any 3D graphic models, maybe in a very simplistic rendered form, indication of what that user experience is going to be, what the screen experience is going to be, the visual treatment, that type of thing. And again, project documentation, this needs to be costed. Even if this never sees the light of day, there is a sort of payment. I find finance is encouraged just by experimenting and working, with developers trying to resolve this. Again, anywhere between 3 and 10 days work, and in and around sort of between 500 and £1,000. In terms of then AR experience costs, again, a lot of this depends on the actual complexity of the application that is going to be developed. That could be from a very simple JavaScript-based app where essentially it tells you where you are, or it tells you you're standing up, or that sort of thing, to something that's very complex and might be sort of mapping you through a location and following you. So 3D models and simpler user faces are also necessary to be able to explain, to sort of make sure that there's that connect between the client and the developer, and importantly, where's the user in that mix. The scope of work here depends on how many models the app might need, whether additional features need to be added to make the app more flexible, more personalized, secure, or customized. So for example, an AR browser may actually cooperate with some print media. There might be some sort of scanning of a QR code or an image that triggers AR browser on the phone. So companies or company products may also be able to be purchased directly from that browser. These types of added functionality require things like gateway, protection, integration, making sure that people can make secure payments. So there'll be additional security measures. These all are costed. And then again, the sort of complexity of any 3D models. So those are all the types of things that there's sort of never a one-off fee for this type of development. It really does depend on the sort of scale and type of things that you're expecting from this. To work, AR browsers quite often need, location-based features. They need to know where you are, or marker-based AR features, so they need QR codes and things like that. You may require stable internet connections, use of GPS, compasses, gyroscopes, and other integrated features that are already in your smartphone, the likes of camera APIs and those sorts of things. And again, just sort of trying to give you a sort of very broad brush strokes in terms, a gyro-based AR app. Well, the simplest way to make any AR application is to actually use the gyroscope that is available within your mobile phone technology. According to information from the gyroscope applications can place essentially virtual models around the user. So you can scan the environment to search for various things that have been placed within that virtual space. As sort of a very simple example, and there's sort of There's actually quite a lot of planetarium type apps where you can scan it over the sky and it can pick out star constellations, for example. And again, that app uses your smartphone's gyroscope. It's essentially a compass mapping feature. It knows where north is. It's tied into other data related to position of the Earth. So that enables you to accurately place planets, constellations, and stars all around a user. Something like that, you're talking about, again, it depends on the complexity, what additional features you want on top of that. But at a most basic level, it's between £6,000 and £10,000 to develop something like that. But those costs can vary right up to around about £35,000. Again, depending on what other data you want to draw into that type of app, what other sort of user experience that you're gaining from that AR browser other than just scanning a virtual environment. And again, a lot of this is sort of costed around time. It's the hours of the developer required to make and deliver something like this. So just to sort of tease out, because those might seem like really broad brushstrokes in terms of costings, but let's just, what are we looking at? Where does the £8,000 come from? Well, it comes from project scoping, any technical specification that needs detailed out, any design or mock-up work that needs to be done in that project development phase, media production. And again, I'm going to go into this in a little bit more detail. All of these, VR and AR needs media assets, and it's important to understand it. These costs arise from not just the technology assisting the back-end development, but actually you need bits of film, you need actors, you need screenwriters, those types of things. If that's the type of engagement you're looking for your user, and then technical delivery, it really depends. If you're looking at VR and it's something that's just going to be delivered via Google Glasses, and you're not really expecting a sort of Oculus Rift or a Hive headset, this is sort of, you're looking at around about £4,000 in terms of development costs. And again, just to tease apart just a wee bit more about media costs, that will require research, storyboarding, script writing, filming, animation, soundtrack, where's the audio going to come from? That all needs to be costed. So it's really important to understand that those costs within this sort of wider frame. And again, content production, technical development costs, it really depends. You say, for example, you're doing a 30 or 60 second 360-degree film, promoting something, a VR experience. It has a single scene. There's no editing involved. It just requires the experience of one single scene. It might be mobile based. Your headset prediction might be Google Cardboard. In terms of the engine that's going to build it, probably Unity. It's a simple single scene, maybe a maximum of 2 to 3 scenes. If you have any sort of rendered models, they might be what we call sort of low poly. So they're in terms of the different facets that are involved in creating those models, they're quite straightforward. You might be hosting this on the cloud as opposed to a dedicated server. You might require any backends, content management system, or any sort of other extra features like analytics. So that's kind of, in terms of a single scene, that's kind of where you should be, what you should be thinking about in terms of costs. And again, AR, VR development rates, it's a sort of moving target at the best of times. Anticipate anything between £20 and £40 an hour, and anticipate for, it is time as well. So you're talking about potentially 1 month, 1 month, development time. Compare that to something that has multiple scenes and lots of user interaction that someone is actually going to engage with in the VR or AR space. You would need extended project scoping to agree some principal outcomes. Your technical specification will require additional systems flow models and service maps. The design implementation will require a real understanding of that walk-through scenario of what your user does at each of these stages. Media production is going to be a lot more because you've got more scenes, more filming, more script writing involved, more media assets need to be developed. And the sort of technical delivery in terms of, thinking about advanced head-mounted displays, that all starts to sort of tally up. So you can see very quickly how you can move from something that is sort of £8,000 to something that is £27,000. Okay, and again, just to break down a wee bit more, and I think this is sometimes the thing that is forgotten about, certainly sort of in my experience of sort of working with businesses, is you may already have the media assets designed and developed by your marketing team, but actually this actually might require a whole new way of looking at media asset development and using it very specifically and very differently in an AR and VR methodology. So it's just remembering that those things need cost and those things do cost money. In terms of a sort of multi-scene user action game, you're looking at a whole different level of complexity. You're probably designing for multiple platforms, different types of headsets. There might be more work required done in terms of sort of the engine required to sort of build all of this. The scenes might be quite complex. They might involve things like roller coaster experiences. I'm fascinated by the example that Tom Houston showed yesterday of getting people to walk out over a plank, over a sort of high-rise building. Really interesting things to think about. But so it might be that type of experience. It might be a complex game. There might be an interactive room, game-like methodologies in which you're asking your consumer or your user to find something, explore something. The model quality here will be a lot more sophisticated. And again, I think this is important because we spoke so much yesterday about client expectations. When you have in your mind an imagined idea of what this is going to look like, and it's understanding, well, your budget may or may not have been pitched in that space. There may be advanced back-end systems, as I explained before, payment methods. You might want to tag on extra, analytical features that will be able to give you some feedback and data regarding exactly what your user is doing with this. So again, this is where we move something that, in terms of the technology development, something that moves from something that was previously, maybe £3,000 or £4,000 into a realm of where it's around about £15,000. So that's really all I was going to cover here. As I explained, this is sort of take questions at the end, but I just thought that was a sort of just hoping to offer some very practical guidance there in regard to what you need to think about if this is a sort of avenue that your business or company might want to explore. Thank you.
Helen, thank you very much. I think the SMEs here in particular are going to find that really, really useful in terms of the level of detail. And it's really giving people the brass tacks of what they need to think about in terms of costs. Yesterday we had a presentation about what the technology is, and now we're getting a sense of what the implications might be for businesses. So thank you very much. I just had a couple of observations just noted down. The first thing was that this is a technology which is, I think affordable for small businesses if they wish to deploy it. When you look at the budgets ranging there from €500 up to maybe 20,000 for VR, a bit more for AR, maybe going up to 35,000. Although noting that maybe is the bigger innovation area. And then, just the thing about the human angle is that you need to have the right human resources to complement the technology in terms of actors or whoever you're deploying as presenters. And then just the basic marketing point about needing to know the needs of the user in terms of what technology you think about. So Helen, thank you very much. And as you're saying, we can take more questions at the end of the session. I'd like to move on now and introduce our second speaker today. And it's Jack Morrow. And Jack is going to talk to us about the adoption of immersive technologies by SMEs and their marketing and training needs. And just to introduce Jack, he is the Chief Technology Officer at Ratanize, which is a Belfast-based immersive technology studio. And Jack has worked with some of the biggest brands in the world, and he's going to discuss his experience and the challenges and the opportunities for business in delivering immersive solutions. So Jack, you're very welcome today, and I'll hand over to you now.
Thanks, Andy. So first of all, apologies for my presentation doesn't look the prettiest because I was called out for a shoot for the past 3 days where I was planning to work on it. So it's, a bit of a fast one. And I'm going to mostly dive into the Coastal Agri-Foods projects I worked on with Helen. So if she wants to dive in at any point and provide any additional information on the projects, please do. So let me just share my screen. Okay, I'm Jack, CTO of Ratanize. So we've been in this space for about 6-7 years now. We came out of the TV production world and then moved into 360 video as our first step, which was the easiest from that world to get our head around, and then continued to moving on to making AR and VR apps and beyond, working with lots of clients from BMW to Save the Children to ExxonMobil, and now we're all focused on actually being a software development company. So it's been a fun roller coaster ride. So going into these agri-foods projects, we basically met 3 different companies and went through deciding which path we were going to take. So we had a bit of budget to work on these immersive marketing activities with each one. And that was a very wide brief. So we had to, per client, really narrow it down to, what would be the best product for each business. So we started with Out There Eggs, which was a fantastic brand in the beautiful Cushendun on Glenballiemen, and they, were Niall, who owns the company, was really fun, and he was very keen with getting something that could come straight off the egg box. So that immediately led us towards augmented reality, because it was something users could do with their phones, on their kitchen table or even in the store. So we looked at a few alternatives for making that experience as clean, as easy as possible. And so we looked at, web AR, building dedicated applications, or using some of the more plug-and-play solutions like Spark AR, which is Facebook's AR development platform. And that's the one we went with because it had the least friction from the users from the moment you scan the QR code to the app opening up on their phone, because the majority of people had Facebook installed and it would immediately launch the experience on their phones, as opposed to having to install an app. And web AR wasn't high enough fidelity. So chatting with Niall, he came up with the fun idea of virtual chicken run. So we thought we took the concept of penguin bars and terrible jokes and ran with that. And so I'll just skip on to. So we first developed a very, very quick prototype using Adobe Aero, which is really great for positioning 3D models, positioning text.
Do recording.
So again, just crude, just to get the client familiar with the concept of augmented reality. So then we had to build the whole application in Facebook's Spark AR, which was an absolute nightmare to work with. So when you're building a dedicated app, pretty much everything is possible. And you've got a lot of flexibility and customization options. As soon as you're working within a platform, it becomes incredibly difficult to work within their limitations. So, we couldn't embed URLs. We'd built an onboarding system, and when we uploaded it to Facebook, they said, oh no, you're not allowed any of that. It has to just launch straight into the experience, which made it quite difficult to guide our users to use the app properly. But yeah, essentially, it was a random joke generator. So they'd load it up, the chickens would tell different jokes, and then when they click on the picture frame in the background, it would start to play information about the brand. So here's a quick snippet of the final app.
This here's a cracker, right? What's the chicken's ringtone? I don't know, tell me. Wing, wing. Wing, wing. Cluck, 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 cluck.
So again, apologies for terrible humor. But yeah, so when we published it, we discovered that, getting people to scan QR codes off an egg box was a real challenge. It was on the packaging front and center, and it wasn't a way users like to engage. We also worked with the comedian Shane Todd to help write the jokes, with the concept that he would share it on his Facebook page and hopefully would get a lot of traction that way because he had 30,000 followers. So we got him to share it, and we shared it on Niall's social media pages, and it didn't go anywhere. So the important lesson from that was really that, you really have to create other media to entice people into the AR experience. So, if we'd released it with a video or something like that, then maybe it would have had a bit more traction. And again, at the time, Niall was meant to be going out to the Balmoral show, where he could have demoed in person and showed people the app in person, and it would have been very straightforward. And we find for immersive experiences, if you want to be sure people are going to look at it, it's great to have somebody in the facilitating capacity. Okay, so next up was Border Gold. They make rapeseed oil. And yeah, Leona was really keen on the idea. She was keen to bring a VR headset into meetings with her to try and secure big contracts for lots of sales of rapeseed oil. And what happened, so that sort of led us down, right, she has a beautiful farm, a beautiful location, so we're going to focus on 360 film, but some of the parts of the process were less attractive, so we're going to add in 3D graphics and representations of those parts of the process. So we did some 3D mock-ups in Maya to render out some 360 shots, explaining some of the graphics and parts of the process. We also did multiple days 360 shooting. One of the main learnings from that was how much farmers are dependent on the weather. Who knew? So it kept getting delayed and delayed as to when we could actually film a combine harvester, but we got there in the end. So I'm just going to try and cut to the video here. So just give me a second. Sorry, I've lost Zoom. Really sorry about this. Okay, I'm back. Okay, here we go. So this is the finished film.
Broider Gold rapeseed oil is a cold pressed single variety rapeseed oil that we press here in our farm. We grow it all ourselves in our own land. We then press and bottle it and infuse it into 9 different varieties of oils for everyone to enjoy. My name is Leona Kane, and myself and my husband run Broider Gold rapeseed oil along with our 800-acre farm that we farm here just on the outskirts of Limavady at Broglasgow in Maroe. Our product is a lovely, mild, pea-like flavour. It's not harsh and nutty like some of the rapeseed oils, but that's down to the way we actually grow it and process it slowly. But the big benefit is that rapeseed has 10 times more omega-3. It's got half saturated fat. It's also got omega-6 and 9 that olive oil doesn't have. We make our product by growing it for roughly 11 months a year. It's planted in September. It's then harvested roughly about July or August time, depending on the weather. We take it into our drying shed once it's cut by the combine. It's then dried to the right moisture. It then comes into our pressing room where we press it slowly to ensure that we're getting as much natural goodness out of it as possible. And then we infuse it with our own infusions that we make up ourselves. It's bottled and sent directly to our customers. We have a wide range of products for everybody to enjoy, from our plain rapeseed oil that is ideal for everyday cooking. It's a natural cold pressed oil. All our oils are cold pressed, but we infuse them with basil, which is lovely for stir fries, for bolognese, for pastas. We have chili, which is really hot. It's lovely, spicy. We have the Thai one, which is more a Thai-inspired taste, lemon, rosemary and garlic. We have truffle oils and a truffle and porcini oil, so we have something for everybody to enjoy. We grow wildflower here in the farm. We have 4 acres planted this year. I'm a hobby beekeeper. I'm a big supporter of the RSPB. We're also friendly nature farmers in what we do in relation to our hedgerows. We keep our clover. We don't plough our ground here at all, and over the winter months we would plant vetch, which is really good for the ground, but it's also good for the wildlife, and it's very good for birds nesting as well. The name Broider Gold came from a broider hoard that was discovered on our farm in 1896. It was unearthed by 2 ploughmen, and to be honest, because we live in Broider, the oil itself is gold. I think it's a perfect name for our product.
Okay, so I will jump back to the presentation now. Okay. There we go. So what was really interesting from working with Leona was, she was very hands-on with her social media. We were able to release the 360 videos to her social media pages, and as well she brought it into business meetings where she had a lot of success because she actually found this was one of the best videos to explain her brand in a neat, quick video and a way of taking clients to the farm without actually having to travel, which was very handy during a pandemic. Then finally, we worked with Breath Gammon. So Breath Gammon are an ethical goat meat company, as well as all sorts of other activities. So the project started out, we were trying to work out, they had people coming to the farm, they had a big social media presence, they were very technically savvy. And so we had a lot of options with these guys. And originally we started with the concept of a Kickstarter video for their agroforestry using VR as a tool, which was going to let users paint different parts of the what they envisioned the end forest would look like, and get the community involved with the project. That all had to change because of COVID and because of the farm's business's plans, and so instead we went to what was essentially, they wanted a map application that would allow users to have a tour of the farm and encourage and guide them to the right areas of the farm when they came to visit. So we did some beautiful drone shots over the land, and then I will quickly just end this slideshow a second. And back to my browser. So essentially what we wanted was, because it is really hard for businesses to maintain different tools. So, if we built an app for this, they would never be able to update and change things when the farm moved around. So we use this tool called Genially, which allows us to drag and drop different hot points. It would work on mobile and on web. And then users could click around on areas of interest and right from there, load up 360 video.
Okay, so this is our perennial bed, and I'm recording this in spring, so it doesn't look like much, but what we have here is our rhubarb, our globe artichokes, and they're all nestled in there in the strips, and they will give us lots of gorgeous rhubarb to make into preserves and chutneys and things like that.
So essentially, we thought this was a good opportunity to actually empower the users, the business, and train them up to use 360 tools, because they were fairly media savvy. And so they did a lot of the production work themselves, and we just guided them through the process and taught them how to update it themselves. So that one's, I think, launching soon and should be quite exciting. And yeah, so overall, these projects taught us a lot about agri-food businesses and sort of their challenges, which, predominantly, it's very hard to get time from them because they're all busy farmers. And so, we had to really be very clear with our storyboarding and with our script writing exactly what's going to happen, so we could come into meetings being like, this is what we're going to do, because there isn't a huge amount of time for the back and forth. So you've really got to nail it. So yeah, thank you for your time, and I'd love any questions.
Jack, that was great. Thank you very much. It was lovely to see those 3 businesses there in Northern Ireland and demonstrating their products, through immersive technology. I was very struck by the kind of innovation that was involved, and not just the technology, but the use of comedy as well, which I thought was great. And also the need, that you described there. Sometimes you need to develop other media to lure people into the AR experience. I thought that was a really good nugget as well. And yeah, just it was really great to see those businesses. And on the back of that, I may even try some of that rapeseed oil as an alternative to
it's fantastic.
So anyway, thank you very much, Jack. We'll come back to questions and chat at the end of the 3 sessions. But thanks once again, and I'm sure we'll hear more from you before the end of the session.
Thank you very much.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, so without any further ado, I'm going to move on to our 3rd speaker now, our guest from Iceland. And I'd like to introduce to you Áskel Heiðar Ásgeirsson. And Áskel is going to talk to us about how to use VR in the tourism sector. And just to say, the exhibition, which Áskel and his colleagues have developed, is based on the year 1238. It's an immersive exhibition that goes a step beyond the regular history museum. So Áskel is going to discuss here how the project was developed using cutting-edge interactive technology that transports you into the past. So Áskel, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice to see you, Andy, and nice to, what can you say, know about all of you out there, although I'm not seeing you. So what I'm going to do, as Andy mentioned, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this project of ours here up in Iceland, up in North Iceland, in a fairly small town called Sauðárkrókur. Yeah, let's start the sharing. Okay, so I hope you see here our logo, 1238, and we call this museum the Battle of Iceland. Yeah, the main idea that we started working with here a few years ago was to create a new magnet to promote this area as a tourist destination, and adding it to an already rich variety of tourist stops for heritage lovers in Iceland. We have a lot of nice museums, both focusing on our regional story and also, of course, on our sagas and many other things. So we wanted to add to that for our guests. And we wanted to bring to life the Sturlunga saga, their main events, battles that took place here in Skagafjörður and the surrounding area. Battle of Örlygsstaðir, Battle of the Húnaflói Bay, of Haugsnes, and the Flugumýri archons. These are all events that took place in Iceland in the 1200s, when Iceland ended up in a civil war, which is difficult to explain in few words, but very interesting and fairly complicated story, but very interesting, and of course very useful for us Icelanders and maybe others to know about, because it ended up costing us our independence. We ended up becoming part of the Norwegian kingdom in 1262, and it took us about 700 years to gain back our independence. So it's a big story for us to tell, and it's also an interesting story to tell. And the reason why we are doing it here up in the north is, as I mentioned before, these events took place more or less here in this area. The method we decided to use was to use the latest virtual reality technology and augmented reality to tell these fairly dramatic stories. And as mentioned earlier here today, and of course earlier in this project, you know a lot about this technology, so I'm not going deep into that. But we also wanted to use more traditional exhibition technology as wall texts and remakes of objects, as well as sets. So this is not just about technology. And the main thing is to create an interesting museum with the help from technology, not for the technology, but by using technology to help us create an interesting experience, and of course being true to the story. This project was set up in an old factory buildings here in this town, buildings with fairly rich history, at least on our scale. And the reconstruction period in these buildings was from 2017 to 2019. And we opened up 15th of June, 2019, just in time for the pandemic. More about that later, maybe. How we did it, this would not have been possible if it weren't for a great cooperation with the municipality here in Skagafjörður, which helped the project by renovating the houses. These houses are owned by the municipality, and they renovated the houses. Then this private company, Sýndarveruleiki, which is virtual reality in Icelandic, this private company financed the development of the exhibitions, all production and installation. And because Helen was talking about money earlier, I added here, I think it was roughly about £2 million. This private company owns and runs the exhibitions, and we rent the houses from the municipality with a deal for 30 years. And the first 15 years, the rent actually changes into the municipality owning a part of the company. So they are really helping the project. The municipality also runs a tourist information center here in the same house. So we are sharing workforce and working together in trying to build up a place to really welcome people to this area. Here are pictures from the renovation time. You can see here on the left how the part of the houses looked when we started working on them in 2018. These pictures are taken, and then to the right you can see how it looked the first summer. So the model we're working with is we have this exhibition about the Sturlunga saga, focus on the main battles, use this exhibition methods as I mentioned earlier. We have also support operations. We run here a small bistro where we focus on local food, simple, fresh and healthy food. We have a small souvenir shop where we focus more on this historical souvenirs. And as mentioned before, this tourist information center. So the focus is on the experience, to build a nice experience from the minute you walk in to the minute you walk out. We're working with a fairly big house. These are around 1,000 square meters that we use when we count everything. So in the first house to the right, you have the entrance, front desk, the tourist information center, the bistro, the shop, kitchen, and toilets. And then in the three buildings to the left, you can see those are the old factory buildings, and this is where the exhibition is placed. And there are a few stops on the way, of course. The first hall is mainly to tell you the big story or explain the big story. And then the next two are more for going into maybe details. So here we have stops like a 360 monitor. We have interactive book that I will show you later. And here on the walls, we tell the main story, what was going on in Iceland in 1220 to 1262. We have a new project we're working on this year, and hopefully we can launch that later this year, which is we call the story in my palm, where we have a projector that will beam a story into your hands, into your palms, and you will be able to flick pages and change the story by moving your hands. We have a stop on the way here in the first hall where we focus on women in this age. We have one of the battles covered in this augmented reality board I will show you later. Here we have remakes of weapons, clothes, stuff like that. And in here we have the actual virtual reality hall where we have 12 stations. So we can have 12 people doing the same experience at the same time, 10 minutes experience for each person. On the way out, you go like a circle in the house. On the way out, you go through kind of like an escape room where you will experience the arson of Flugumýri. But this one of the events at the time was a terrible arson where actually a wedding party was burned down. It was all very brutal and not very nice. But in the end, if you survive the arson, you will come to the photo area where you can put on costumes from this time and take a nice picture of you and your group or your family, and of course share it. What makes us special is using the usage of this virtual reality technology. You can see there on the right, the upper picture, a person with full gear on. So they go into this battle of Örlygsstaðir for a 10-minute experience. And what we focus mainly on is you're not just watching, you get involved. So it's interactive. You will throw stones and spears, and stones and spears will be thrown at you. So you will actually take part in the battle. We use the HTC's Vive and also shock vests, as you can see there on the picture. We are using augmented reality. Helen mentioned before that we you were talking about that being maybe even more of a growth going on in the augmented reality part, and we believe so also. So we will focus more on augmented reality in coming months and years. We have one station where we work with augmented reality. That's the table you can see there on the picture to the right, the lower one, where we have this 3D cut landscape that you can view through an iPad, and the iPad adds the Battle of Húnaflói Bay, which is actually the only naval battle in our history. And you will also, like in the other part, you can also take a little part in that and have some influence on what happens. But we want to develop that more, and of course, yeah, that will be one of the challenges of the future. During the COVID, we finished a job that we have already started when we were opening up here. It's what we call an interactive Sturlunga. Sturlunga is the book. The Sturlunga is the book that keeps the saga I was mentioning. So this is an interactive real book, but with just white pages. And then we have a projector that beams the information down on the pages. And when you flip the pages, the information will change, as you will see in a video later. So this part of the exhibition is emphasizing on the literature part of the Sturlunga age, because even though we were very busy at the time, killing each other and our friends and the family, we still had time to write stories, which we are focusing on there. Our guiding lights through all this have been to create a good, positive and memorable experience. Of course, think about the respect for history, create a good workplace, collaborate here with the locals. There are many specialists in this story that we want to collaborate with. Also the regional museum here, tour operators and other museums. Bring more tourists to the area. Also try to enhance the cultural life in the area by activities, events, and so on. We've even tried using this virtual reality gear for gaming nights, and also help build technical knowledge and use of virtual reality in teaching and innovation. We also want to help others when it comes to using VR and AR with guests. Andy mentioned before, part of working with this technology is just learning how to use it with people. And we have now been using it for almost 3 years, and we've helped thousands through the process of using a VR. And it's an interesting and at times very funny process. And we all now have this experience that we can share with others. To end with, we don't want to be just a museum, even though that's great. We want to have development projects in progress, and we are currently working on a digital audio guide with an AR function. The idea is that visitors can scan codes, or maybe not even scan codes, if we can just use the scanning of the room, and the smartphone or the tablet will know where you are. Not going into details there, but they will then listen to audio files in various languages. Just because Jack was mentioning Spark AR, we did try Spark AR last summer, went along with it and tried to use it, but we're not going down that route. So there will be a kind of a graphic AR guide that will meet you, talk to you, and help you through our museum. We hope to have all this running up and running for the summer, and the target is then to develop a similar outdoor guide to use at destinations related to Sturlunga, so you can actually visit the actual battlefields and see something going on there in the future. We are working on new or more languages in the VR section. We'll hopefully have the German language up there for the summer. We have now Icelandic and English to choose from there. And we also we're going into this pattern of more emphasizing on development projects outside of the high season. We're working on school projects, and we have ideas in other fields also. We want to focus more on international cooperation, so that's why it's great to be here with you today. We also are working on some projects where we are guests, or a pop-up museum, we can call it, at other museums and historical places. We will be opening up in a place called Viking World in Reykjanesbær later this year, which is very not so far from the international airport in Keflavik. And we have other places also in progress. And we are very honored to mention that we did receive a nomination last year from the awards called Heritage in Motion, European Awards, where we were in a very good company in those nominations. And we've had great reception from the local community, and very local funds and fundings in the area has been very helpful with this development programs project of ours. To end with the future, hopefully we will see the end of this pandemic, which has been difficult for us, as probably all of you. We hope to see a slow growth in attendance here at Sauðárkrókur after the pandemic. We want to develop Sauðárkrókur, and our exhibition here is the main hub and development center for a new product in AR and VR, and we will try out here on our exhibition and our guests. And we want to keep on developing in collaboration with others. So please, if you see something interesting here today, don't hesitate to be in contact with me through our webpage 1238.is. The pictures, of course, tell stories, and here are a few from our exhibition. The top one on the left is from our dining hall, which is actually an old grocery store. And then you can see pictures from the exhibition, the museum where we are telling this story. And here on the upper left is from our virtual reality hall, where we have this booths, that we call them, one for each player, and you can see there people, small people actually, playing our experience. And I'm going to end here with showing you a video that I hope you all see and maybe hear. This is to get an overview of what I was talking about. And just to tell you before we start, there is some music that goes on, which is actually an old hymn written here in this area in 1208, the words. And we are still singing this hymn at funerals in Iceland, so it's one of the oldest one known in Scandinavia, I think. And we really connect this hymn to this story. So I'm pressing play, and hopefully you will then see something.
That was amazing. I didn't expect it to be like so just circular, like everywhere. I actually interact everywhere with it and turn and be able to see it all. It was actually amazing.
That was great. I like that my chest was like vibrating. And then when you get to grab the rocks and throw it, I think I killed like maybe 5 people, hit 5 people. It was pretty accurate. It was a great experience. I would do it again.
Okay, that was all from me. So you can see that our guests, they can find their inner Viking when they visit our museum. So thank you.
Ásgeir, that was brilliant. Thank you very much. I genuinely felt transported there, watching the video at the end, a million miles away from the world of Zoom. And I was kind of reassured that it seems like you can fight back against those arrows and stones. So that was good to know as well. Just a couple of things that kind of impressed me was you're saying here that the technology is a tool. It's a means to an end. It's not the end goal in itself. And that the complementarity of other media, including physical, is really important. And also your links to schools and education, I think, is superb. So thank you very much again, Ásgeir, for your presentation.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Most welcome. So what we're going to do now in the final stages of this morning's session, we're going to just hold on for a few moments until we go into the selection process for the SME mentoring. And we're going to deal with our Q&A session now and our chat questions. And we have a couple of them stored up, which may be for various of the panelists. And the first of them is from Risto Salminen, who is from the University of Karelia in Finland. And his question is, and it may be one for Helen, I'm not sure here though, anyone can come in, is what kind of running costs can there be expected after the publishing of the VR and AR product?
I'll step in first maybe and try and offer, I don't have actual definitive answer, but I can sort of maybe sort of explain broadly things that need to be thought about. And again, sort of a lot of it comes from sort of more robust procurement processes that have evolved around, say, for example, website development, that type of thing. And certainly in terms of website development, it would always be recommended that there is, additional money for any maintenance, for further hosting, to deal with changes that need to be done in relation to operating systems that constantly update and present problems for developers in that code needs to be changed due to the changes in operating systems. And with website development, we always advise companies to look at, between 15 and 20% of the original budget should be thought about in terms of sort of quantifying how much money needs post-development or post-launch or post something going live. And I would anticipate something sort of similar for any sort of AR and VR development costs. Again, though, a lot of this thing depends on a lot of the projects we've looked at, or certainly projects that we've worked with through this project. They were meant to be, they were sort of meant to be, marketing tools, which in their own marketing, in its own, domain, has a sort of, anything that's developed normally has like a limited lifespan anyway. It's sort of anticipated that something will come out. In terms of marketing strategy, it will largely operate as PR for a company or a product or a service. And then once that noise has been generated about something, then actually the main focus is actually the product or the service, as opposed to how AR or VR is being used for that. So it does kind of depend on sort of different different sort of aspirations about how long you want something to, survive for. But certainly you really do need to consider, hosting has a charge, server space has an annual charge. Any, developer, that you might need to go back to, whether that be maintenance, because technology is just inherently buggy and glitchy. I was curious to hear both Jack and Askell talking about Spark AR.
Yeah, I've got an update on that one actually, which is as I tried to launch our app for that experience this morning, Facebook seemed to have completely changed their policies and it no longer works. So that's an example of, so what I'll have to do is open up our old project, update it to the new version. That may or may not work straight away, and so you might have to do a lot of refactoring, and this is something we found for other AR apps. So the ones that are published to the App Store, you've got any changes happening later. So we had a tourism app for the Walls of Derry, and they needed us to change the brand from like virtual tour guide because we were upsetting the local tour guides. So that basically meant we had to republish the app, which required the latest version of the Android and iOS SDKs, which required us to update Unity, which required us to update the plugins within Unity we were using. And at that point, you've done those updates, everything breaks, so it's got to be repaired. So for particularly, apps to the App Store, these sort of updates can end up costing you $5,000 for needing to swap out some images because you can't publish the old versions of the software to the app stores.
I'm sort of curious there, and again, sort of thinking about Ascot as well. I mean, Jack, is this getting worse? As someone who's been in this, arena for a number of years, is this something that is getting more and more problematic? Are there more and more things that are able to break?
There is hope, but it is just that thing of like the apps, if they were on the App Store, would remain fine. Spark AR with Facebook is like really emerging technology and they're changing it all the time, and so they will just cut you off as soon as they're changing direction. So you do have control, but it can be expensive, particularly in the AR world. In the 360 video world, everything's great because the video file is a concrete thing. It doesn't change, it doesn't need, so you can upload it to lots of different places. They all read the file, and that's great.
Yeah, if I can add to this, we experienced the same. We are running our virtual reality part kind of like a movie. It's local here, and we run that from our local computer, so we are not we don't need anyone to tell us how that's supposed to work. That's just fine. But regarding this question about the costs, the maintenance costs haven't been that much. We have, of course, had just cables or stuff like that, but mainly that's been okay for these 2 years. But if you go deep into using virtual reality like we are doing, then you have to, our experience is that you have to be prepared for everything that can possibly go wrong. It will probably do that at some time. So that's why we have, for example, 12 booths to service our guests. So even though 1 or 2, maybe 3 are dysfunctional at some time, you just take your customer to the next booth and he doesn't experience anything unusual. And while he's playing, you can maybe go and help with the one that's broken. So depending too much on technology and depending on it will be fully functional every time you need it, it's dangerous. So you need kind of like a backup plan or a way out. But saying that, it's been a great experience. But we have one super user here that knows how to update all this stuff and how to make it work, and then the rest of us can just go in and use it. But don't underestimate the importance of knowledge and importance of knowing how to run all this.
Yeah, I have to say, I think those are all super contributions from the three of you, and it strikes me from this morning's session that there's a mixture of here. There's the inspirational when you see the technology being delivered, but there's also the very practical lessons that are coming out of it in terms of, the costs involved, logistics, and yeah, definitely a sense of having to have a plan B always in place. And I guess everyone kind of feels that who has to use technology in the modern day world. But I just wanted to thank the three of you, Auskill, Helen and Jack, for your contributions this morning and for dealing with your subject so expertly. And it's greatly appreciated having you here today. Before we move into the draw or the selection process for the SME mentoring, I just wanted to flag up this afternoon's session. So we are going to be reconvening at 1 p.m. The session will run until 3 p.m. and it's titled collectively as Delivering Sustainability in SMEs. So sustainability is the theme of this afternoon's conference session, and we really hope that you can rejoin us later on. We will have with us speakers from Iceland and Finland, and they'll be covering ecosystems for startups, sustainability in outdoor event management, and also how SMEs and universities can collaborate in terms of environmental management. So it's a very engaging, diverse lineup, and I do hope that you can join us. But anyway, before we move into the next stage, I'd like to introduce to you our colleague on the project, Liam Horan from the Western Development Commission. And Liam is just going to guide us through the selection process for mentoring for SMEs. So Liam, you're very welcome today.
Thank you very much, Andy. I hope people can hear me okay. Actually, I've hit my self-view, so I need to change that. I can see, can I change that? Not to see me anyway. In fact, what you need to see is what's on the screen. So if I can go that way, if that's okay. Basically, as you said, we are selecting 2 winners to win 2 free mentoring sessions as part of the Digi2market project. So the sessions are worth €500 in total. We've 1 overall prize of that magnitude. And then we've got 1 prize for businesses from each of our 3 regions. Ireland, which is taken to mean the whole island of Ireland, Finland and Iceland. So we have 69 registered businesses for this conference. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you can hear me okay, Andy?
Yeah, loud and clear, Liam. Thanks very much.
Okay. So we've a high-tech selection process, which you can see on the screen now. Basically, presume that's sharing okay. A random number generator, and this is for the first prize. And if you win the first prize, the main prize, you can't win your regional prize. We'll exclude you from that. So we have 69 names. All of us involved in the project have access to the names, but for GDPR purposes, we of course won't share them publicly here, but we have the list. So I'm going to give it a spin here. This is for the €500 prize. The drama is unbearable. The number picker wheel sounds a little bit rusty, but hopefully we'll get there. The winner is number 5. And number 5 in our list is Carol James from tosustain.eu. Sorry, no, that's the wrong list because he's not actually an SME. I'm looking at my wrong list. My number 5 from our SME list, sorry, is Barry McCluskey. Barry McCluskey from mccwatersol.com. So sorry, that first list was of people registered who are not SMEs. So Barry McCluskey wins the overall prize of the €500 mentoring sessions, and we will get the details to Barry. Next, I can tell you that in Finland we had 1 SME registered, so therefore we don't need to run a draw there, run a selection process there, and that winner is Johan Lasarov from yukon.fi. So they'll get 1 mentoring session from the Digi2market project, okay? And now we go to Ireland. We have 60 registered. So I got to unshare my screen for a moment and reset my number picker. And we got to put in 60 here, with the proviso that if Barry comes up, he can't be the winner of this prize as well. So we have 60. We share the screen again. Bear with me. And here we go. You can see that again. Yeah. So now we have 60, and we are going to run the draw again with 60 numbers in it. This is for the Irish prize of 1 mentoring session. And this is number 23. So I go to number 23 in my Irish list. Bear with me a second, we'll bring that up. Our Irish list on number 23 is Helen Call from Donegal Glamping. So Helen Call, Donegal Glamping, wins the 1 mentoring session. And our final one then is for Iceland. We have 8 SMEs registered from Iceland. So I'm just going to change the parameters again here. And could you see my screen during that last thing there? Yes, you could?
Yes, perfect, Liam. Thank you.
Okay, so now we got to go to, we have 10 for Iceland, isn't that right? Or sorry, 8 for Iceland. It's got to do 8. Can you still see my screen? Or do I need to reshare?
We can't see the wheel, Liam.
Okay, the wheel is coming out, the unbearable drama of it all. And so we have 8 for Iceland, and we spin again. This is our final prize. Number 4. Number 4 in Iceland is Helga Margaret from I don't have a company name, but Helga Margaret, number 4 for Iceland. So that's it, Andy. That's your winners, and we'll be notifying all the winners, of course, in due course, of what they've been selected to win. Okay, thank you. I hope that wasn't too tense for you all now.
Liam, fantastic. Thanks very much. Yeah, hopefully people's they won't have too many butterflies in their stomach before they have their lunch now. Those have all been blown away. No, Liam, thanks very much. And there was something kind of rather fitting about using that approach, it seems to me, for a Digi2market project. It seemed perfectly in keeping with doing that.
It's slightly more into the technology spectrum now, but it's a start, yeah.
That's it. But no, thanks again, Liam. And I think, yeah, these are great opportunities for those SMEs that have been selected. We look forward to working with you and offering that mentoring through the project. And as Liam says, we'll be in touch with all those individuals and businesses in due course to confirm everything with them. So I think we have come to the end of our morning session. It really just remains for me to say thank you to all of you for coming along today and for your participation. It's been great to have you. Please do come along again at 1 p.m. GMT and join us for the afternoon sessions. Hope you have a nice lunch and look forward to seeing you again. Bye for now.